Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Griffith Observatory. Thank you for coming out on this rainy California day. That sounds like an oxymoron, but in fact, it's California and it is raining, thank heaven. So thank you for making the trek all the way up here on a rainy day. We are having a bunch of special activities today to celebrate the 55th anniversary of humans launching into space. The first astronaut to launch into space was a Soviet cosmonaut named Yuri Gagarin, and we are coming up in just a few days on the 55th anniversary of that historic event, making all this spectacular space things that we see, all the astronauts, all the NASA programs. How many of you saw the SpaceX launch and landing on the barge yesterday? Is that pretty good? Yeah, it's fantastic. So all of that made possible, all of these new breakthroughs from the courage and daring of that Russian cosmonaut 55 years ago. So we are very fortunate today to have an astronaut, Captain Samantha Cristoforetti, here to tell us about what it's like to be in space, and to introduce Captain Cristoforetti. And it is my pleasure to introduce the head and leader and guru and spiritual conceiver of all of these global celebrations for Yuri's, celebrating Yuri's anniversary, called Yuri's Night, and that would be Loretta Hidalgo-Whiteside. So it's my pleasure to introduce Loretta.
Thank you, Laura. So welcome to Yuri's Night, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Yuri's Night Kids. This is our special Yuri's Night Kids that we're doing this year because we wanted to extend the excitement and fun of Yuri's Night to the younger set. And so thank you guys for being here. Samantha Cristoforetti was in space last year at this time, and she was gracious enough while she was orbiting the Earth in the International Space Station to record a greeting for Yuri's Night parties that happen all around the world. Yuri's Night was created 15 years ago to create a world holiday that we can all come together to celebrate space on the same day and to share and celebrate how space has the power to bring us together as a planet. So Samantha recorded a greeting for us from ISS, and it was the best one I'd ever gotten from. It's the best greeting I'd ever gotten from space. And so this year for Yuri's Night, we decided we just had to fly her out from Italy, or at least from Europe, to come and be with us for Yuri's Night LA this year. And so we're really honored to have her, and we're really excited that you guys get to hear straight from Samantha about the extraordinary experience of getting to be in space. So I'm going to invite Samantha to come up, and she's an amazing woman, fluent in 5 different languages, trained in Russian, worked with the Russians. Be a girl on this mic. So thank you for being here.
I think so. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Loretta. Wonderful to be here. So how many of you want to be astronauts? The adults don't count. I want to see the kids. Come on, raise your hands. I want to see you. Oh, there you go. There's a few. All right, I see a lot of adults here, but I understand this event is dedicated to kids, so I'll try to keep it kids-friendly, and of course I'll open it up to Q&A. You want to be an astronaut, huh? I figured that. He's a big Star Trek fan, too. And also I'll open it up to Q&A later, but I really want to make sure that we leave the space to the kids for that part as well. So as Loretta was saying, a year ago I was in space, which was pretty cool. It was the adventure of my life. I had wanted to be an astronaut since I was a kid, about the age of some of you here, so about this tall. Was in elementary school, and I was already telling everybody that one day I would go to space. Probably I didn't even know what an astronaut was, but I knew that I wanted to go to space. And it took a while, but eventually it happened. It was this night, November 2014. And believe it or not, I launched from the same place, which is called the Cosmodrome, in a country called Kazakhstan, way on the other side of the world. The same place where Yuri Gagarin launched from 55 years ago. In fact, it was almost the same launch pad, except that it was being renovated, and so we had to switch to another launch pad, but almost. And so it was this wonderful night. Imagine, you know, my friends were there, my family, and finally it was time to fly to space. We sat on the top of the rocket. Just at the very, very top of the rocket is where this tiny spaceship is. Everything else is just fuel. It just burns and then falls back to Earth, whatever is left of it. And just on the top of the rocket, it was the 3 of us sitting in there. We sat in there for about 2 hours and a half, listening as this rocket, like a sleeping animal, was slowly coming to life, and eventually the engine lit up, and we were on our way to space. And so my buddies here at the center, you can see Anton Shkaplerov, a Russian cosmonaut, and on the left, Terry Wirtz, an American NASA astronaut. There you go. So a very, very international crew. Imagine just that, you know, before we became astronauts, all the three of us were combat pilots in our respected air forces. So we like to say space unites. We got to fly to space together, which is wonderful. When I was a child, I was dreaming of flying to space on a spaceship like this. Didn't quite get that, but I did get my own little spaceship. And when I say little, I mean little. So from the front to the aft is probably about as wide as this stage, not more. And we were actually really only sitting in a little tiny bit of the spaceship, the middle part. And so we were sitting like this and strapped in, and we couldn't move. You know, we had our knees in our face like this. So not the most comfortable ride, but it's not that long. I mean, do you have an idea how long it takes? That rocket that I've shown you, take a guess how long it takes until the rocket is gone, until it's all burnt up and we are in orbit flying around the Earth. How long does it take? What do you think? You don't know? Do you know?
5 minutes.
2 hours. Actually, you're very close. 5 minutes, you said?
Yeah.
Very close. About 8 minutes and a half, so a little bit less than 2 hours. So that's all it takes. That rocket burns for about 8.5 minutes, and then all is left is this tiny little spacecraft and the three of us sitting inside and starting to fly around the world. Do you know how long it takes to make one turn around the world? Anybody?
I know.
You know?
I think I know.
Go ahead. 1 day. Oh, that would be way long. It only takes an hour and a half. Imagine that. In 1 hour and a half, we make one entire circle around the world. So for me, for example, it meant that we launched that night, as you saw, but actually within a few minutes of being in orbit and starting to turn around the Earth, I actually could see for the first time a sunrise, and I could watch the light of the sun illuminating more and more of the Earth beneath us, because we were quickly flying from night towards the sun into the light, which was pretty cool. So do you know what this is?
Oh, I do. The International Space Station.
Bingo! Yes. Very good. And this is, and do you know how big it is? Do you have any comparison? Yeah.
As big as a football field.
Yes, as big as a football field. Good job. So that's pretty big. And imagine that as human beings, in the course of 10 years, we have come together, we have joined forces, many countries around the world have joined forces to build this amazing place in space. I like to call it the outpost of humanity in space. And it's kind of magic because, you know, human beings can sit on a rocket launched to space, and in this vastness, which is empty and dark, and it's impossible for humans to live there, but we actually have a place to go, a destination, a place where we can work and thrive and do science research, and where friends can open the door for you. This is our full crew. At the bottom, you see the three of us that I showed. We came up on this rocket together, but the three on top, they were already there. So they welcomed us, they opened the door, and at the beginning they explained to us how things really work in space, because, you know, you train for many years, but then a lot of things you really only learn from your buddies when you're up there and they show you. So from the left to the right on the top, Sasha Samakutyaev, Butch Wilmore, and Yelena Serova, so 2 Russians and a NASA American astronaut. And that was our version of a NASA expedition poster. We were, after all, Expedition 42, so for those of you who know what that means. You see me? Yeah? That's funny. And this was the view from my window. Not bad, huh? I think it was worth the trip. So the space station is all built by cylinders like this. So they're like, also about 7 meters long, about, about as long as the stage, and about this wide and cylindrical, as you can see. And you can, and all the pictures that you see of astronauts floating in space, flying in space, working, having fun, they're all inside modules like that, those cylinders, because they contain air that we can breathe. And as I said, flying around is pretty fun. Space girl has nothing on me. The thing that you see behind is the Colombo Space Laboratory. So we do a lot of research in space. I can show you some pictures of, doing all kinds of science, from biology to combustion to understanding how liquids work in space to growing plants. We really want to understand how the fact that we are weightless totally changes the game in a number of fields. Things completely work differently in space, and so we do a lot of research to understand how that works. We also have to fix things. So sometimes, the space station is a very complex machine. Like your car, your mom and dad sometimes have to fix your car or bring it into a garage because it breaks. Well, a car, even if it's a complex Tesla, is still a lot simpler than the space station, which is very big and very complex. So, a lot of times you have to go and grab your tools and fix things. Sometimes you get to build things that you can send outside of the space station, and you use this funny table there that you can slide out like that. And then, look at that. You see that little cube there? You see it? That's a microsatellite, a CubeSat. It's just about, the size of that cube is just about this, 10 centimeters, so very small. And a lot of times, those CubeSats, because they are cheap and relatively easy to do, they are built by students at the university or sometimes even in high school. So a lot of you maybe will get a chance to build those. They're becoming more and more popular. And maybe some future astronaut will send them out on their way on orbit using the arm. Now, of course, you're up there for a long time. So sometimes if you get really mad at your buddies up there, then you can throw them out in space. No, of course not. We don't do that. We actually got along just fine. That's my buddy Terry Wirtz doing a spacewalk, which means that he put on this suit. Actually, I helped him. I helped both of them, Butch and Terry, put on this very complex suit, which is like a spaceship for one single body, because it really allows you, like a spaceship, to live and do work in outer space. Not for a long time, for about 6, 7, maximum 8 hours, let's say, but you're really able to go out and work. And you train for that underwater. So this is Terry and I training in Houston in this gigantic pool where you can simulate working and repairing the space station, because in the water there is a replica in real size of the modules of the space station. So as you probably understand, a lot in space is about teamwork. So you really have to rely on your crewmates, especially when things get critical. So there are 3 types of very critical situations that we train for a lot on the ground, and then we really hope that they do not really happen in space. One is fire. So we do a lot of training on the ground to be ready to respond to a fire on board. That would be bad. The other one is a depressurization, which is a fancy word to say that there is a hole in your space station, and guess what? If there is a hole, air is escaping into outer space, and that's not a good thing. And so you would go around with an instrument like that and try to figure out where this hole is and hopefully stop it before it becomes too late. But the really, really dangerous, most critical situation is, well, that would be if you have her as your crewmate. But besides that, that would be an ammonia leak. So if you have ammonia floating into the space station, I'm not going to go into details, but ammonia is a very dangerous substance. And during a stay on board, that actually happened to us. We had an ammonia alarm going off. Now, luckily, it turned out to be a false alarm. But because we had to respond to that situation, and we really had to stick together as a crew, because we didn't quite know what was going on, that actually was a day that helped us bond together as a crew even more. And that is really, really important. Other bonding activities on board are, of course, having meals together. This was our Thanksgiving dinner up in space. We celebrated birthdays, of course. That was my birthday. This was Christmas. Yeah, the Russians get carried away when it's Christmas. They have that was actually the Orthodox Christmas. We had 2 Christmases. That was cool. We got 2 for the price of 1. We got the 25th of December, and 2 weeks later, the Orthodox Christmas for our Russian colleagues. I got a special gift, the Mach 25 patch from my commander. You need your bodies to get a haircut. Haircuts are very critical because, you know, when you cut your hair, you actually need somebody also to be able to catch that hair. Otherwise, people are going to breathe in all your cut hair for days, and that is just not good. This is where you sleep. You sleep in a sleeping bag like that. And I really liked it because I could just float freely while I was sleeping, and I liked it that way. You work out every day. Working out is really important, you know, for your bones and for your muscles. You even can run. Water is very important up there. You know, we're human beings, just like in California. You know, you don't have to waste water. We recycle everything, including, guess what? Urine, exactly. And all the humidity from the air, all your sweat, everything gets recycled into water. Food, this is fresh food, but this is really a cheating picture. We only get that once in a while. Most of the food is dehydrated. You have to add water to make it eatable again. Or they're like sealed packages that are ready to be eaten. But once in a while we get special food. Yeah, fresh food. Do you like fresh food?
You like fresh fruit?
Do you like fresh fruit?
What's your favorite fruit?
Who likes fresh fruit?
I do.
All right. Who eats it every day? All right, I see a lot of hands down. It's not good. Only we astronauts in space, we have an excuse because we only get fresh fruit once in a while, but everybody else should eat it every day. Otherwise, you won't become astronauts. And these are some of the vehicles that bring us stuff like fresh food, but also experiments, clothing. And when there is a vehicle that has arrived or has to leave, there is a lot of that going on, which is packing big bags. Just imagine like one big move every time. Tons of supplies that come and go, and you can really get lost in there. So this is our ATV leaving. This is me in a Star Trek uniform, but on the back there, you can see a dragon arriving, and that was a very special dragon because it had the world-famous first espresso machine. And this is me enjoying my first espresso in style inside the cupola. Now, this is a better picture of a dragon. A dragon, of course, needs to be captured, needs to be caught by the robotic arm. So you can see here. Say again?
Where's the dragon?
Oh, that's the dragon. That's that vehicle. It's a cargo vehicle. And we go and catch it with this, which is the Canadarm2. It's a robotic arm built by the Canadians. So from inside the space station, we are like at the controls. We have like 2 joysticks, and we can actually fly this arm and go and capture this dragon. Now the dragon wants to be captured. It's not flying away, but it's just standing there, holding position, hopefully as stable as possible, and then we go and capture it and we attach it to the space station. And now I'm going to show you really, really quickly some of the views. I'm not going to comment a lot because I want to give you guys time or chance to ask some questions. But these are some of the things that you can see from the cupola on the space station. Auroras. This is the town I was born in, Milan, at night. Cities at night are very nice. Thunderstorms in Thailand. This is the moon glint on the Earth. Clouds high up in the stratosphere, noctilucent clouds. Sunrises or sunsets. And that's the light that really floods the space station just when the sun just came up. The Terminator, this light between the light and night on Earth. A big typhoon, or the eye of a cyclone illuminated by a lighting. Or just the beauty of planet Earth. Or home for many of you. Recognize it? 26th of December 2014. So if you were in LA or in the area at that time, say hello to yourself. You are in the picture. All right, and then unfortunately it was time to leave about 200 days after we arrived to station. It was, we were delayed for a month, so we got to stay an extra month, but then they said, this time we really mean it. You really have to come home. I'm like, okay, fine. So we got ready, got in our suit. And we had this wild ride home that ended like that. Wow. Hitting the ground real hard, but not too hard. And then we were back on Earth and a new adventure started, which was getting used to be a human being on Earth again. Thank you.
We have just a little time for questions for Captain Cristoforetti. Are there any questions?
Yeah, what language do you speak with the crew?
Americans mostly speak English, and Russians mostly speak Russian. And when they talk to each other, they mostly English, I would say. We Europeans usually are fluent in both languages, and I would speak English with the Americans and Russian with the Russians, and whatever happened to make sense.
How long does it take you to adjust when you come back from space?
Yeah, I don't know that I really have yet. No, just kidding. Well, some things get back real quickly. Like, for example, I did a vestibular testing, which is like a shaking platform that tests your balance after 10 days. Well, I did it after 3 days, and it was by far not normal. But then I did it after 10 days, and it was actually better than pre-flight. So somewhere between 3 and 10 days, my balance had gotten back to normal. But maybe in terms of running and flexibility, I'm not even sure, seriously, that I'm still back to normal. So it takes a while. Okay, any kids have questions? Oh, there you go.
You're flying around in space in the ship, and you need to fix something, and since you're in space, a tool flies out of your pocket.
Oh, if my tool flies out of my pocket while I'm fixing something outside? Is that right? Oh, that's actually, that has happened sometimes, more than once actually, and that's a bad thing. So when we train underwater for spacewalks, one of the things that the trainers really pay attention to is that we really get in the habit of securing everything. So everything which is in our bags, which is attached to our spacesuit, we don't really have pockets, but we have like a contraption attached to our spacesuit where we can hook things. So everything always needs to be hooked. Now, we're all human beings. Occasionally we make mistakes, and so things have been lost in space. But that can become dangerous because they can impact the space station, or maybe not right away, but maybe, you know, we're all in the same orbit, and so they may become dangerous on the next orbit. So it's really something that we don't want. But occasionally, of course, as I said, we're all human beings. It has happened.
There's another young person over there.
Yeah.
Oh.
What?
What science experiences did you work on?
Oh, science experiments. Actually, many, because, you know, I've been in space for such a long time. But, for example, one of the funniest ones was when I had to grow several generations of fruit flies. So fruit flies are those annoying little animals that sometimes fly around in the kitchen when it's warm and there's, you know, fruit maybe lying outside. But they're very interesting because they are used by biologists and researchers because their genes, you know, the DNA, the genes, are very, very well known. And so we can study them and see how they adapt to weightlessness and then make conclusions that are true also for more complex animals and even for human beings.
Oh,
Yeah.
when will we have plants on Mars?
Plants? Well, that's a good question. But NASA has a long-term plan of actually having missions back to Mars for the 2030s. If you ask me personally, I think that we will go back to the moon first. And then we will probably figure out on the moon first how we can grow plants in environment which are hostile, like the moon or Mars. And then once we've done that, I think we'll be in a better position to figure out how long it will take to make the next step, which was going way further out to Mars. Young lady?
How long did it take for you to get used to walking on the ground again?
How long it took for me to get used to walk on the ground again? So I took a few very shaky steps after about an hour from landing, because for the first hours they carry you, they let you rest in big chairs, and then they bring you to a tent and you lay down and they help you take out the suit and they make a few medical checks to make sure you're okay. So it takes about an hour before you're ready to go on the helicopter and leave. And so the first few steps I took were just from the tent to the helicopter, and I was very shaky. Everybody was standing around me to make sure I didn't fall. But by the time we arrived to the big airport, so after the helicopter ride, which was about 2 hours, at that point we would walk kind of like this, you know, with very wide legs because we were not very sure of our balance. But we could walk, you know, safely enough that people would, you know, they wouldn't all be there watching us. They could stay a few steps away and assume that we would not fall over. But to walk normally, I mean, you can probably walk normally by the next day, but the only thing is that all your muscles and tendons are going to hurt a little bit. Yeah.
Will you go on another mission?
Say it?
Will you go on another mission?
Oh, I hope so. If I'll go on another mission, I really, really hope so, yes. I count on it. I mean, it's a very unpredictable business. You never know, but I count that I will have another chance.
And way up in the top.
So, on your spaceship, how would you shower or take a bath?
Oh, yeah. Well, there is no flowing water because water wouldn't really float, right? Because there is no effect of gravity. So what we do, it's kind of like what you would do when you're camping. We have like sort of really camping towels that we can wet and then use them to rub our skin, so take sponge baths. And if you're really careful, you can put some water on your skin and will kind of stay, you know, if you don't shake or you're not too jerky, so that you have a little bit more of a feeling of cleanliness. But that's really it. So I really miss taking a real shower.
I want to ask one question myself, and then to conclude, and that is, you said you dreamed of being an astronaut from the time you were quite young. So what steps did you take, and what steps should our young astronauts to be take to get where you are today?
Well, at your age, I think it's really important to study hard and work hard in school, and of course, you know, if you have a chance, try and get some experience at your level, of course, at school level, but in science, getting hands-on in science, and hopefully you will find by doing that a passion for science or technology. Because those are really the paths that eventually will bring you to becoming a good candidate for applying for the space program. Another path is flying. So I'm kind of a mixed background. I'm an engineer by education, but then I became a combat pilot, so that might be something for you. But really, I mean, in the end, you shouldn't be obsessed by the idea of becoming an astronaut. I was never obsessed. It was my dream. It was always there. I think it has helped me do the best I could in everything in life, but I was never obsessed. So being obsessed is not a good thing, but having you know, an aspiration, that's a good thing. But do try and focus on being happy in what you do day by day. And you know, astronauts are typically happy people, so try and be happy.
That's great. Well, thank you, Captain Cristoforetti.